Should you self-publish? Should you indie publish? Should you get a traditional publisher? These are questions an author gets to at the end point of their writing process. So I'm making this video mostly for my authors because I say this many times, so I'm trying to summarize the journey. So you're watching this video if you've really completed what is the very best draft possible of your book. You've written the book, you've written the first draft, second draft, third draft, you've had beta readers, you've had feedback, you've rewritten it. It's pretty much the best you can do. And when you're sitting at this point, you have two avenues you can take. And the one is you are going to approach traditional publishers. And I'm going to put that up here. Traditional publishers would be your Little Brown, Simon & Schuster, Pan Macmillan, Penguin, Random House, traditional publishers. We have the big ones, which I've just named. And then there's lots of littler ones, smaller ones that you can be looking at. But they go in one big category, traditional publishing. On this side of the screen is independent or self-publishing. Now, let me just have the separation. Traditional publisher means that they will pay for your entire book. They will print it. They will edit it. They will get it into the bookshop. So they will do book distribution. So it's what every author in their heart of hearts wants. It's a publisher like Penguin to say, oh, we like your book. We think it's going to sell. We believe in you as an author. We are going to take you in our stable and pay for everything. And we are going to be your publisher. That's a quick summary of what it is to sign a traditional publishing deal. Outside of that, there are thousands, in fact, hundreds of thousands of authors who are not going to get such a deal. The publishers are not interested in the book. It may not be right for a publisher. It may not even be something you want in your life. And those are the authors who are going to take the other branch of publishing, which is to look at what would it mean to publish my book myself, which very often does not mean personally sitting and designing the book and editing it. It means, can I work with a little company? I, as the author, will pay them to do all of these things for me in a very professional manner. So I will be paying for it. And at the end of the day, I will own the book. So these are the two branches of publishing. I'm going to talk a little bit further about both of these in this video. But if that's all you need to know, you can sign off here. I'm going to start with independent publishing, not traditional publishing, because the chances are you may have exhausted this option. You may have pitched publishers. You may have got lots of no's. Maybe you haven't even started that journey. We're going to get to that next. But if you embark on this thing called indie publishing, it can be called hybrid publishing, self-publishing. Back in the old days, it was called vanity publishing. It's called all of those names because it begins with the beginning point of a big name publisher is not my way, and I'm going to step out of that and do this book any which way I'm getting this book to market. So I'm going to hold up one of my books that I self-published. Write your book in 100 days. Stop mucking about and just write it. So this is one of my own self-published books, and I've just got so many of my authors' books end up being self or indie published. So first of all, when you look down my book, it's actually published under Apis Press, which is the name of a company, which is actually one of my companies. So you are not going to be published as, this is Sarah Bullen publishing my own book. These companies handle everything for you. It's just that they take a fee. So with this book, I was already a multi-published author. I sent it out to some local publishers. Very quickly, they got back to me. They said, not for us, market too small, too niche, too narrow. And my business partner and I at the time already knew we had a huge network within all of our authors anyway. So we said, we'll do this one ourselves. What that meant was we hired somebody to handle this all for us. Let's call it a midwife, but it's actually called a little indie publishing company. And what they did was they took our manuscript, they gave us a fantastic editor. We paid up front for the editor. Then they did design and layouts. They typeset the book on the page, so they took it and did that for us. But then we signed this off and we got our copies. At the same time, they designed a cover. They gave us a number of very fantastic cover options. We chose one we liked. Then we tweaked it. Then we got the whole thing and we proofread it. And they got a professional proofreader to do that for us. And proofreading really is when you get this printout of what your book looks like. Are there errors? Are there line breaks in the wrong page? That is proofing. So we did all that with them. And then we signed it off and we had paid for the book to be loaded on Amazon, to be loaded on Kobo Books, to be loaded on Lulu, and equally to be printed. And we printed 1,000 copies of this book in our home territory where we are about to do a book tour. So we had 1,000 in our garage. We had Amazon files, so anybody in the world could order our books on Amazon. And we had Kindle books loaded, so anybody could read their book on their digital e-reader. So not only could they read it on the e-reader, but Amazon print on demand meant they could actually order a book and get a printed copy in 4 days in almost every country in the world. And that, in a very quick summary, is what independent self-publishing actually is. The biggest difference is you pay for these things. You pay for them for a publisher to manage it for you. What you get is you get the ownership over your book. So you own this entirely. You get 100% of your sales if you sell in person, bearing in mind you would have to buy the book first. So you'd pay for this copy of the book, but then you'd sell it. So you'd order less potentially. And then if you're selling it only on Amazon, you would get your author share on Amazon, which is generally either 60 or 80% of your book sale. So Amazon take about 20% of your book sale, you would take 80, sometimes they take 40, you take 60. So you would be making that margin of the book. Why would you want this? You would want this if you have an existing network that you know you can sell your book into, that you're a public speaker potentially and you speak all over the world, that you have little groups you run. It could be a textbook that you want and you're using it for your workbooks for your clients. That's why you would self-publish. Another huge reason is you simply haven't got a publishing deal. Publishers have pressed for, they're also run on margins and they're just saying no to you. So you may decide, well, I still believe in my book and I want it out there. And if it's a novel, it may be the same story. Publishers have said no, they've turned you down, and you believe that you can still make a brand as a novelist, and you take the ownership over your own rights and your own business. It's not to say that down the line, a publisher won't pick you up. In fact, you may find that if you suddenly sold 10,000 copies of a novel and you pitch a publisher for your second book, there, see you as a very good going concern. You've built an author brand, you're starting to get traction in the market. So they may pick you up. So you may move from this side of my screen into this side of my screen, which is traditional publishing. So I'm picking up one of my own books, which was then be with a traditional publisher. And that really means that I have been signed by a publisher. You have been signed by a publisher. It can be one of the big names I've mentioned, your Times Media, your Little Brown, your Simon & Schuster, your Pan Macmillan, your Penguins, your Random Houses, any of the imprints underneath them, any of the tiny divisions they have, or the big divisions, or any of the publishers in between those huge ones and tiny ones, anybody, they all qualify as traditional publishers, which means they are going to finance all of this. So all the steps I just said you're going to finance, they will do. They will take your manuscript and they will sign an editor and work with the editor. They will then take the edited version and their people will do your interior typesetting or layout, laying the book on the page. They will design your cover and give you some options. You have a lot of say in this process. And then ultimately what they will do is your distribution, which means they are going to get those huge boxes of books from their warehouse into bookstores. And that is the one thing that is really the dividing line I found consistently working with authors and with traditional publishers as an agent or as an author, and indie publishing is one of the more difficult things of sitting on this side of the screen of indie publishing is how do you distribute your book? How do you get the book from that box in your garage to bookshops? And so authors consistently find that that is challenging. Amazon has solved a lot of our problems, but to get your book into those bookshops is an individual negotiation most often with every bookshop owner. And so in the world of being an author, the golden standard, what we lean towards, what makes us feel validated, endorsed, and like somebody else is doing it all for us is this side. But also in the world of publishing, And in my experience of working with authors, where most of my authors end up is this side, is that they haven't managed to secure a publishing deal, but they know they believe in their story, believe in their book. They want it for things that may step outside of being on bestseller lists, and they choose to finance the book themselves. So I leave you with that quick summary. In my other videos, I'm going to dive much deeper into each side of the process, and those steps I kind of rushed through. But most of you watching my video, your decision is, I've done my book. What do I do next? And these are your two avenues. I always encourage you to shoot for this one. Do this. Send your book out, send your query letters, go and look for a publisher, go and look for an agent. Do your due diligence on this side of the equation. And ultimately, if you come back here, you're coming back with your eyes open, you're understanding the market and what your next steps are. And often you're going to understand your costs. Very important. Early in the game, get an indie publishing quote. Just know at the end of the day, if all these big guys say no to me, over 2 years, maybe you want to continue this process, that you know maybe what you're in for financially if you choose down the line to move back to this side. So best of luck with the submission process and keep going.